So in your presentation, summarizing almost over 250 IT projects that you did across Baltics, you were talking about 5 perspectives: digitalization, legislation, mobile first, and then the customer experience. So talking about the digitalization aspects, maybe you can mention a success examples, because at the same time talking about digitalization, you mentioned whether things go good, but sometimes things go bad. And I guess there's always this fair trade, or this percentage between success and failure when the change is so quick and when change is so prompt. So do you have a success examples that you can share across the countries and from your 250 projects, especially in the public sector, especially in the government reforms, in those changes, and what actually happening in the digitalization world?
Of course, I was talking about many cases, but the success story is, for example, digital national library, because this is a big project for the National Library in Poland, and they had a big problem because nobody reads a book, and also nobody wants to go to the library to read the book. So they decide to prepared more than 3 million objects, like old postcards, old books from, different ages and parts of, Polish history to the digital world. And the first success is that they decide to do this in the cloud. It's very important because the cloud allows you to be very flexible, as I said. Also, they decide to use a search engine to like a Google search engine, to be able to find your highlights inside the postcards, inside some descriptions and books. So this is one of the biggest success in my opinion, because we were on the first place in the whole Europe 5 years ago with this project. Also, I would like to say that this digitalization, the digitalization in our construction sector is also the success story, because of course in 2020 we had nothing, but now in 2021, in next week, all this system will be launched, and people will be able to apply for the permission via internet. Almost 400,000 applications per year Polish people sent to the clerks. So this is a big change for our country. Mm-hmm. Yes, so I think that these are the biggest one, because also we are supporting non-government organizations, and they have a big problem to make a crowdfunding and start to use the IT solutions to collect money for their missions. So this is for me very nice part of our job, because they can like for homeless NGOs, they collect money via our solutions to have money for homeless people and support them with the survive. So this is examples of good success stories about digitalization.
Absolutely. Another important thing that I captured from the 5 perspectives, you are talking about how quickly the change is happening and how promptly organizations are developing change and moving towards the change, and at the same time the importance of prototyping. And I guess the concern that pandemic taught is now the fintech and govtech and overall country digitalization strategies expanding so quickly. And then I guess, the challenge of not prototyping or not prototyping enough may lead to the situations that all of us in the technology world know how much time it takes to decommission the systems or move from the golden source or those kind of very complicated technology solutions to adopt. So how do you see that the countrywide digitalization strategy can be achieved, or even the Baltic Sea region-wide strategy can be achieved with the prototyping, rather than just letting the explosion of digitalization happen within kind of uncontrolled strategic approach towards growth?
I think that that we will achieve and we will use the prototyping in our region if we decide to separate the making a big IT systems from, as I said, prototype. And you have to know that prototyping, fast prototyping, it's cheap and fast. It takes about 5 days, maybe 10 days to build a first version of your prototype, show it to the stakeholders, show it to the end users. And after this, you can, I hope so that GovTech Lithuania will talking something about this, but this is the place for making experiments and making research and develops. And if you are open for prototyping, it means that you are open for innovation and you not copy the schema, but you think about new ideas. But the new ideas are usually very long-term goals. So prototyping can give you opportunity to hire a lot of freelancers, small IT companies from our region, and they can compare between themselves to make better prototypes. And it's cheap. So if you want to stimulate the innovation, if we want to be a leader in IT in our region, we have to start prototyping, because there is no time to build end-to-end system nowadays. So if we are open, and we will invite companies and freelancers to make a best prototype for the problems we have in our region, in my opinion, it's the way to achieve the leadership.
Absolutely. I guess I just want to ask the last question. You were finishing your discussion about the customer experience, about and dream big, but at the same time, you know, you were talking about the methodologies such as agile and such as lean, and moving from that waterfall cycle based one after another. So even though the digitalization and companies are adjusting to more lean, to more agile, to more quick, robust delivery model, we are still, as you mentioned, very much dependent on legislation changes and that quick and prompt change to the legislation. So in your opinion, how can we adjust this agile and lean delivery model within government institutions as well to prevent that very prolonged period of time for legislation change?
The answer is maybe a little bit too easy, but we should hire this methodology to the politicians people, because prototyping, it's not only for the IT solutions. We can prototype the new laws, we can prototype the new regulations. It's not always obvious that Parliament has to have a big debate for a lot of weeks to put the new law. So if I would to change the way of making a new regulations, I would recommend to policymakers and business makers to use this methodology, not only, as I said, for the design new IT tools, but to design also the legislation solutions. And it's easy, because they always can ask the target group, for example, you know, homeless or entrepreneurs or students or teachers, what is the blocker in their daily life with the law. So the same methodology which makes that the Facebook is Facebook should be hired in this legislation area.